you so much for joining us, everyone, tonight for our White Cane Day event in partnership with the kindness pandemic. It's fantastic to see you all here. My name's Sally and I am the General Manager of Projects and Engagement here at Vision Australia. Wow, I haven't worked there in about 15 years. At Blind Citizens Australia, and I'll be hosting this evening's event. So before we get into anything, I did want to let everyone know that there are captions available. You can access those by selecting the closed caption icon at the bottom of the screen. It's next to the record button. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which each of us are meeting. For me, that's the Darkinjung people, and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present and emerging. Tonight, I'd like to share with you a bit about the work that Blind Citizens Australia does and about White Cane Day as well. I'd also be introducing you to three of our members, to Linda, to Liz and to Kristy, who've been kind enough to join us tonight and are willing to answer a few questions and share a bit about their lives and their experiences and the work and things that they've each been up to. We'll then open up the floor and you're welcome to ask any questions of your own as well. In the meantime, if you wouldn't mind placing yourself on mute if you've got any background noise, that would be fantastic. The mute icon's at the bottom left of your screen. Otherwise, you can access it by pressing Alt-A on your computer keyboard. Or if you're on a telephone, you can use *6 as the command as well. And using those same commands will take you off mute if you want to ask a question as well. So Blind Citizens Australia, or BCA for short, we're the national representative body of people who are blind or vision impaired. For over 40 years, BCA has provided information, peer support, individual and systemic advocacy, as well as public policy initiatives to our members and the wider community. The organisation also has a proud record of leading single and cross-disability research and public policy related projects in areas such as telecommunications, disability standards and international capacity building. As an organisation, BCA is different to a lot of others in that we don't provide services to people. That is, we don't do things like teach people how to use specific pieces of technology or perhaps skills to develop their ability to cook. We focus primarily on our peer support, on advocacy and on policy work as well. We do this by connecting, empowering and informing people. We connect people through events like these. So every week we run 3 events that we call happy hours for our members. They're virtual events that we host by Zoom, and every event we have a variety of different guest speakers or panelists, and we have discussions on a variety of topics. And on Saturday nights we also host trivia where anyone can, any of our members can join in and compete for bragging rights for the week. And these have been really popular since we started them back in March this year. We focus on empowering our members through our advocacy work. So we provide individual advocacy to people who may have faced discrimination because of their vision, but we also work on systemic projects, and that's where we advocate for change on a larger scale. One of these projects is our TV for All campaign. TV for All is an initiative that we started and we are working with a number of blindness organisations to try and change the broadcasting legislation to ensure that audio description, which is a spoken description of the visual elements of something like a TV show or a movie, we're trying to make that mandatory on all free-to-air TV. We are going to play a video soon that has some audio description on it. So if you haven't encountered it before, it'll be a nice introduction for you. We also will work on informing people through our many communication channels. One of these is our New Horizons weekly radio program and podcast, where our host Vaughan discusses a topic of interest with a number of guest speakers and presenters, and we play that through the radio RPH network, and it's also available for download as a podcast for members as well. While we do encourage people who are blind or vision impaired to become members of BCA, this isn't mandatory to access the work that we do. Anyone who's blind or vision impaired can access these things, but yeah, we do encourage people to become members if that does interest them. Our organisation is led by our CEO, Emma Bennison, and 75% of our 17 staff have lived experience of disability, as do all of our directors on our board. White Cane Day is an event that's celebrated on the 15th of October every year. It is a symbol of accessibility throughout the world and recognises the contributions that people who are blind or vision impaired make to their communities. It's an important event for BCA as and it's for this reason that we, in partnership with the Kindness Pandemic, have invited you here to join us tonight. One of the key focus areas of White Cane Day is to raise awareness of how people who are blind or vision impaired can live independently and gain employment. Over the past 12 months, BCA has been working on a project called Eye to the Future. This project has seen us working with organisations to change the perceptions they have about people who are blind or vision impaired in the workplace. We've done this through several strategies, one of which includes the creation of a number of day in the life videos that focus on the working lives of 4 of our members. And we're now going to play one of those videos for you now. And this is the video that has the audio description in it. So, Kathy.
Okay, just bear with me a little bit, people. I'm going to share my screen. And then I'm actually going to play the video, and you will also hear the audio description.
A stylised eye graphic forms text, an eye to the future. An academic wearing red robes and a black cap uses a white cane. She attends a graduation ceremony and works in a lab.
My name's Linda Agnew. I'm an associate professor in biomedical science at the University of New England, and my current position is as the head of School of Science and Technology. Part of my role is to oversee the teaching and research activities that staff in the school contribute to, and to oversee student activities and the staff activities in that. I undertook my study later in life. I was a mature age student. I got my diagnosis, which came out of the blue. It was rather a shock. And so at that point in time, I really had to consider what my career options would be. Over a period of about 10 years, my sight deteriorated gradually, and then to the point of about 4 years ago, the rest of my remaining sight was lost. The area of passion for my research is in the biomedical area. For me to really continue to excel in that space, I needed to change the way that I conducted research. So I actually still participate in all of that type of research, but I do it differently. And the way that I do it is that I have students and research assistants and postdocs that I work with complete those tasks, those very fine tasks that require a level of visual acuity that I don't have. I'm involved in conceptualising and designing research projects. I'm involved in administering clinical trials. I'm involved in discussions around the analysis of the data once we've collected it. It's not a lesser contribution to the research, it's just a different contribution to the research that I make. I would really encourage students, if you've got a burning passion for the sciences, please don't think that it's not possible for you to develop a career in that space, because it absolutely is.
She helps build a house.
I really love to travel. My husband and I partnered with an organisation called Global Mission Partners. So we widened our scope to be looking at individual communities and villages in Vanuatu and how we could value add and make a difference to the lives of people, whether that be through education or healthcare or other ways, sustainable income, those sorts of things. We fundraised and sent equipment and medical equipment over to a clinic. We've established scholarships for kids. The real core focus of what we do is in partnership. It's about us going and having respectful conversations with the community to ask them, what is it that you need? What is it that we can help you with? Many people who are vision impaired have fantastic problem solving skills, fantastic project management skills. So I'd also say to potential employers to not be afraid to ask the questions about what can we do to help accommodate you? What are the things that you need in the workplace? So do you need some adaptive technology or some particular software? And how do we go about getting that? It's really good to have a conversation around ability rather than around the disability. So it's really good to focus on what an individual staff member can do and how they can contribute.
My name is Professor Bridget Hayward and I'm the Vice Chancellor and Chief Executive of the University of New England. What you've got to do is think about there are different ways to have natural engagement. That whether it's a blind member of staff or a student with a visual disability, you've got to create an environment which is natural for them. I think the advice I really would give, and I apologise for the language I'm about to use, is make no apologies for being bloody minded about demanding the things that you need to be the very best person that you can be. As an employer, it is to be brave, to put aside the difficulties and the challenges, don't ignore them, but be respectful of them. You mustn't put any individual who joins you who has a disability in a bigger box than the one they've already been placed in. If I can be so, that's rather blunt and sharp-ended statement. They're already in a box that has the word different attached to it. Don't make the words uppercase and make the box as small as possible for them and for yourself.
Text, thanks to Linda Agnew and Bridget Hayward, University of New England, Armidale. Learn more at itothefuture.com.au. This project is brought to you by BCA, thanks to funding received from the NDIA via the 2019 Economic Participation of People with Disability Grant.
So tonight we're actually joined by Linda, by another of our video stars, Kristy, and also by long-term BCA member Liz Wheeler. So thank you so much, each of you, for joining us and being here tonight. Linda, I'd like to start with you, if I could, and ask you a question a bit about your work. So you're currently the head of the School of Science and Technology at the University of New England. Can you tell us a bit about an average day and what that looks like for you, and whether there is actually such a thing? And how's your work changed this year?
Thanks, Sally. There probably isn't such a thing as an average day. My role is really quite diverse, and I get to do lots of different things, which is part of the thing that I love about my job, is that there is so much variety on a day-to-day basis. So it's never boring, it's dull. So I am interacting with staff. I have over 100 full-time staff in the school, and also quite a few casual staff as well. So on a daily basis, I'm usually interacting with them, meeting with them, doing approvals for various things, on various contracts, in meetings, and often planning strategically what's coming up. We always have to be quite a few steps ahead in order to make sure that our offerings are ready for students in the next teaching period, and in fact even right through to the next year. We have a lot of planning that needs to be done to make sure that we've got the right people to be teaching, and we've got all of the equipment that we need, and that students have everything that they need. I also interact with students quite regularly, so that might be students who have come to me with a problem, or it might be the PhD students or master's students that I'm supervising. And so in the video you would have seen that I talked about doing my research differently, so interacting with my colleagues and collaborators and having meetings and planning our research and talking about what we're doing, and working on manuscripts and papers and conference presentations, and that's all a part of it as well. So and there's a never-ending source of variety, and of course lots of meetings, always meetings. And I think to answer your second question, I think the way my life has changed at work this year the most is the Zoom. It's become the Zoom era, and so rather than having face-to-face meetings, we are conducting most of our meetings via Zoom. In the first 4.5 months of the lockdown, we worked from home, so that was a major adjustment, getting all the staff accommodated to be able to work successfully from home, and also accommodating our students. So in the sciences, we have a lot of practical activities in the courses and units that we teach, and so I worked a lot with staff this year to facilitate converting those face-to-face activities, sort of traditional lab-based activities, into online activities that students could undertake and still be able to complete their course and units and achieve their learning outcomes. So this year's been, it's been a roller coaster really. It's been quite different. Certainly hasn't panned out the way we thought it would. So it's taken quite a bit of agility and versatility, I think, to change the way that we do things, but to still be able to deliver quality experience for our staff and students.
Absolutely, and as an actual student at UNE, I can testify to the amount of work that has gone in there and the incredible job that the staff have done. It's been fantastic. Kristy, over to you. So I believe that over the past few months, the amount of work at the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has dropped off a little bit, especially since none of us are really getting to use our passports.
Yeah.
And because of this, you've transitioned across to working for the Department of Human Services.
I have.
What's the transition been like, and what have been some of the highlights and the challenges that you've experienced in the past couple of months?
So the transition was actually conducted really well. Initially when COVID hit, we weren't quite sure how it was going to affect the work that I do with DFAT, which is in the Sydney Passport Office. Originally, I volunteered for our emergency call centre, so I worked with them for 6 weeks, just giving advice to our Australians trying to get back from overseas. And when that work lessened, there was the opportunity to go and help out with the job seeker applications that had started inundating the Department of Human Services. They're now called, they had a name change at about the same time, so I think they're known as Services Australia now. So from a visually impaired person's perspective, it was actually a really smooth transition. That was probably one of the highlights of my move. In 2 days, they were able to accommodate my assistive technology and get me set up on a computer so I could start training with the rest of my colleagues. We sat through initially a 7-day training package to help us learn the systems, the policies behind the job seeker claims that we'd be seeing, and then set us off to help people who had lost their jobs in the pandemic.
And did you experience any challenges along the way, or was it all quite a smooth process?
The main challenge, and I think it's a common one, is the virtual learning. So we were all socially distanced in the office. We were all connected to our computers and learning through Skype for Business, which is the approved system they use at Services Australia. So when you overload the system with hundreds of new staff members trying to learn at the same time, the connections were a little all over the place. The sound was a little all over the place, but we did the best we can. We're actually just about to hit our 6 months in our new locations. Along that time, we've transitioned to processing more complex claims. We've transitioned to processing other work that comes into the department. It's been a great learning experience.
Fantastic. Liz and Poppy, welcome Poppy. Apart from being a not quite yet professional singer, over the past few years, you've left quite a senior role at the ATO and have since taken up some further studies. Can you tell us a bit about what you're loving about your studies and what your plans are for the future with them?
Yeah, sure, thanks. I think what I really love about the studies is the opportunity to learn how to meaningfully help people overcome difficulties in their lives. So I really enjoy, I guess, I'm studying counselling, by the way, everyone, that probably will help. So it's totally different to the work I was doing before, and it was just something that had always been of interest to me, and almost like in some ways a little bit of a calling, this sense of finding people in crisis or in need and being able to walk beside them and help them reach, I think, you know, a better quality of life and a sense of peace and contentment. So yeah, that's what I'm really hoping to do as I move forward.
Lovely. Thanks, Liz. Back to you, Linda. In your video, you mentioned that you've done a lot of work in Vanuatu with different community-based organisations. Can you share a bit more about how these projects are going at the moment and what's happening there?
Sure. So what we've done over the last 10 years is worked within a number of communities on a remote island in Vanuatu. It's called Pentecost Island. And over the 10-year period, we've had a range of different projects. And usually each of the projects is self-contained in the sense that we try and start and complete the project within the assigned time period, working with the local communities so that the most benefit can be gained from that, you know, within that reasonable time frame. So the sorts of things that we've done is we take teams most years. We have teams of individuals from every walk of life who come and join with us and volunteer a couple of weeks of their life to visit a tropical island and to learn more about Vanuatu culture and to be immersed in the community and to give something back to people who perhaps don't have as much in terms of their physical belongings as we do. So what we've tended to focus on is projects that are in education and healthcare. So that's included building classrooms and providing resources to schools, so things like and textbooks and resources. It's also involved building it at health clinics and providing some resources there. And I think, as I mentioned in the video, some scholarships for kids, because high school education in Vanuatu is not yet completely free. The government has started some subsidies, but it's quite expensive for families who are small subsistence farmers to be able to send their children to school. So look, those projects are going quite well in terms of The buildings are still standing with the exception of one that we built. Unfortunately, earlier in the year, around about the time at the start of COVID, Vanuatu experienced a Category 5 cyclone, and it really devastated a lot of the country. So one of the buildings we built, even though it was cyclone rated, and this was a really massive storm with winds over 300 kilometres an hour, unable to was really just unable to sort of stand up to the winds and the storm and that sort of thing. But our friends are all safe, and the villages and communities we go to are all safe. No one was severely injured, and thankfully no one passed away. But the community has been in great need since then. And with the COVID restrictions, there's no travel allowed there. So unfortunately, our plans to go there this year have had to be put on hold. But we maintain our contact and support, and I'm looking forward to when the borders open to be able to getting back there and actually getting on the ground and helping out in person.
Wonderful, sounds amazing. Kristy, you also got to do some travel recently. You went to Finland on an assignment to be part of the Global Action on Disability Conference in Finland. Can you share a bit about that experience and what that was like?
Sure. So DFAT has a disability section that primarily focuses on policy surrounding humanitarian aid in developing countries. And we try to help people in those countries with disabilities get what they need essentially out of the aid programs, as well as the able-bodied people there. So DFAT runs an international skills and development program, and it gives you a chance to work in that section for about 6 weeks. And I was selected to help them out on a conference that they co-chaired at the time called the Global Action on Disability. And that was held in Finland, in Helsinki. So I spent a month leading up to that conference. I was learning to develop notes and briefs for the minister that would be travelling with us, helping devise strategies on the breakouts and the talks that would be given during that conference. The conference went for 3 days, and it was just an amazing experience to see so many different countries get together on and to focus on aid programs for people with disabilities.
Sounds amazing. Do you have a favourite memory of Helsinki?
It's a beautiful place to visit. We actually got to see snow. I left our summer. It was held in January. So I left a 35-degree day in Sydney and landed in Helsinki, and it was -2 degrees. We got some lovely dustings of snow, and just getting a chance to actually go around and look at the old buildings. And I'd never travelled to Europe before, so just to see the history that you don't see in Australia, to know that buildings had stood there for hundreds and hundreds of years, it was just phenomenal.
Lovely. Liz, you're also involved in a bit of extra work that's a little bit closer to home. You volunteer with Guide Dogs New South Wales ACT and do some work with Uber. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing there and why it's so important to you?
Yeah, so I guess I've probably more wiggled my way into Uber via Guide Dogs. But I guess primarily what I want to do is educate and raise awareness and improve the connection between blind and vision impaired people and the broader community. So I get to go out to different businesses and offer functional training around sighted guiding, what vision loss might mean, and things like that. So one of my favourites is the ophthalmic nurses, although we haven't got to go there this year because obviously none of the conferences are going together. And of course, Uber was something that was personally important to me as well as for our community. I had experienced some really quite significant issues using their service. I had some really poor driver experience where Ubers were either cancelled once they realised I had Poppy because she was the dog. And in one very severe case that has been dealt with, I experienced what I would call gaslighting, where the driver knew the rules and didn't want to cancel, so instead pretended he was there and took advantage of my blindness, repeatedly sending me to incorrect cars, resulting in me nearly getting in a car with a man I didn't know. So as a result of that, I decided that I needed to find a way to connect and make change, because I don't believe he was acting out of a bad place. I don't think he was a bad person. I think he was someone who didn't have all the thinking and the knowledge and wasn't able to connect my story, my experience with his heart and his opportunity to, you know, do what he's doing in the community and to help someone. So I had a chat with guide dogs and of course with Blind Citizens Australia, and each took the case through to a driver hub, and then guide dogs did a little bit more work and networking, and we ended up meeting with the heads of disability in Sydney. And in that meeting I shared that story, but I also shared wonderful stories where people had not been certain about Poppy getting in the car, and then as we drove and they took me anyway, learning about blindness and the role she plays in helping me live independently and with freedom, you know, and having rides pre-COVID ending in hugs. So through that, they agreed to allow guide dogs to start doing training of the drivers, and I had the opportunity to do one session before COVID sort of put a stop to everything, which is unfortunate, but all the drivers do get videos as well. So I think it was, I guess through the work I do, I try and find a voice for myself and then use that to give voice to issues and make positive change, not just for us, but for the whole of society.
It's incredible. I have heard that story a couple of times and it still gives me goosebumps. Thanks, Liz. So given it is the Kindness Pandemic's Festival of Strong this month, and that's what's brought us all here tonight, I'd like to come back to each of you and take the opportunity to ask you what strong means to you. So Linda, do you want to, are you happy to kick us off?
Sure. I've been reflecting on that question for a while and thinking about it. And it's, I think there's lots of different ways I could answer that, but I think I am made strong, I think, by the people that I have around me, the people who love and care for me most, my family, but also the people I interact with, my work colleagues, and also by the support I receive, peer support through BCA, and also support that I receive from other organisations such as Guide Dogs and Vision Australia. All of that support makes me strong. But also internally, I think for me, having a sense of self-awareness and knowing who I am and setting goals for myself and being able to be reflective around those goals and who I am as a person is also really plays a really important part in making me strong. For me as an individual, I rely very heavily on my faith as an internal marker of my strength. And I also rely very heavily on, as I said, self-reflection and being mindful, and also practicing an attitude of gratitude, being really grateful for my life and for what I've been able to achieve and for the people that I have in my life. And I think that all of that is tempered by the fact that being strong doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be strong all the time, and it's okay to be vulnerable and not to have to put on a brave face all of the time, because sometimes in our times of weakness, that's when we can grow and become strong again. So I've found that at times when I've not been feeling very strong, you know, I've dusted myself off and picked myself up, and have really been able to build that strength again. But it's also important to make sure that, yeah, that we ask for help when we need it. And so, you know, having those support networks in place for me is absolutely essential.
Lovely, thanks, Linda. Kristy, how about you? What is it that you believe about being strong, that makes you strong?
So I too have been asking this question of myself for about the last 15 months, especially since I was deemed legally blind. To me, it's about just doing the best that you can, and having the knowledge that when you need help, you can ask for it. It was around that time 15 months ago that I joined BCA. I reached out and gained experience in cane training to help me navigate to and from work. And I think keeping a positive attitude and understanding that there are good things that can happen from what seem like hard times create a stronger person. All the support that we have in BCA and that family and friends give us just build on that, and it's great that we've got this community.
Absolutely, and it's fantastic to have you as part of it. Liz, how about you? What are your reflections on being strong?
I think for me, and I did do a post on this in the kindness pandemic that some people might have read, and that was part of living the strong as well. It was putting myself in a real place of vulnerability, and I think being able to do that sometimes is being strong. I wanted to share, and I am quite open, like I said, a lot of what I do is about helping others as well as myself to be our best and to live our best life, no matter who you are or what you want to achieve. And so I'm quite open about admitting that I have struggled with mental illness. I think it relates to many things, and I don't want to say that my disability makes me mentally ill, because my blindness is often my greatest gift. The insights, the opportunities I've had, the way I can reflect and live such a rich life comes because of the loss of my sight. Not in spite of it, and I didn't lose any of that, but certainly that struggle between the identity. I think you mentioned before that I was a senior director at the ATO, so a few years ago I had collected a lot of titles and had a lot of sense of who I thought I was and where I thought I was heading, completely denying a degenerative vision impairment that had been diagnosed, but as we do, or as I did. And so strength sort of came when I was forced to really, really, really work out who am I and what do I really want in life. And in some ways I'm so lucky it happened young. I could have gone on another 20, 30 years perceiving what I was doing. What I was doing was good, but there's a richness to what I do now. And there's a lot more meaning in what I do. And so I think when I talk about work or career or, you know, why I'm doing these things, there's always this sense of real value and real alignment in who I am and how I'd like, you know, to live on this earth for as long as I live. And that's very different for me. And I think that's where my strength comes from. So, you know, I can get beaten down or something, you know, terrible can happen, but a little spark is always there in me. And I think, well, this is an opportunity now. And now that this has happened, what can I learn from this? And how can I help others who might find themselves in somewhat of a similar situation or somewhat of a similar feeling or emotion? So I think, yeah, a lot of my strength has come from really accepting myself and liking myself and even loving myself. I think that's a big thing.
I think you all have an incredible ability to see the opportunity despite whatever situation you may be placed in. I think that's been really evident tonight. I just want to thank you each so much, Liz, Kristy and Linda, for sharing that with us. Is there anyone else? Kathy, are there any questions in the chat, or would anyone like to pose a question to Liz, Kristy or Linda?
I do have a couple of comments from the chat, and then I'll pass it over to others to ask. Just a reminder, if you can take yourself off mute to ask a question, but if you can pop yourself back onto mute. There is a number of us here tonight, which is fantastic, but that does cause a little bit of background noise. So a couple of the comments. Scott had a question, Kristy, around the APS Surge team and Services Australia. I hope that means something to you. Scott was told his JAWS could not be installed and wouldn't work with the SA system. So he wondered how you managed to get the reasonable adjustments.
Okay. So I use ZoomText.
But
No, I use ZoomText, and I don't know if the team I went into was just more helpful, but they do use a shared service that comprises of people who know exactly how these software programs interact with Services Australia programs. I do know with the ZoomText, I do have issues with one of their processing apps, so I can't use that one. It just doesn't show the words properly. I tend to use it more for magnification than actual reading. I'm not sure. It would probably depend on what work you were going to be doing. I'm mainly working in just processing. I don't do a lot of client calls, so it might have just worked easier in that setting.
Kristy, it's Scott.
Hi, Scott.
It was actually the processing for the COVID surge team.
Okay.
I was being seconded from my agency to the surge team.
Okay.
And my HR manager said, ask them, and I did, and they said, we can't do it.
Oh, see, that's not the answer I got, which is really disappointing. So I'm guessing the surge team you're talking about is what we know ourselves as APS 2000
yes,
now.
That's it.
Yeah, we're all redeployed, which is wonderful. But my director at DFAT pretty much asked the question, and it came back to say, yes, she can use that program on our systems. They had a whole user guide on issues I may face depending on what program I was using. But
Kristy,
I actually haven't come across anyone who uses JAWS. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing. I have heard mixed feedback from people who have said they've had issues with Services Australia and accessibility.
Kristy, if it's all right with you, maybe we could pop you and Scott in touch with each other after tonight.
Yeah,
and you
that'd
could
be
have
great.
a bit of a chat.
Yeah,
Sure.
Lovely, thank you.
And just one other comment from the group chat, and then I'll pass it over to people. A lovely comment from Fernanda to you, Liz and Poppy. My 4-year-old autistic son says hi to Poppy and Liz. He enjoys looking at their Facebook posts.
Poppy, wave hi. She's just chilling.
She is chilling. So just a reminder to take yourself off mute if you're wanting to make a comment, and to allow space for everyone to make comments if they want to.
Yeah, sorry, it's Fernanda here. He actually fell asleep, so yeah, couldn't get to see Poppy for a bit.
So does Poppy.
Hi, Kristy. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Fernanda. How are you going?
I'm good. I'm just trying to put this little one to sleep, and now that he's sleeping, I'm just going to enjoy a glass of wine and still watch the Zoom.
Lovely.
Now, Jane's just popped in the chat that she'd love to offer Poppy a belly pat after seeing her roll over.
There you go, Poppy. You're getting virtual belly rubs.
Poppy is quite the famous guide dog. Liz, is it her social media, her Facebook, Poppy the guide dog? Is that right?
Yeah, Poppy with an I, the guide dog. So
Yep.
again, we share through there really to raise, educate, create awareness, and allow people to have a little bit of a look into what someone with vision impairment and blindness gets up to and what guide dogs do. So just another way to try and, I guess, connect and break down stereotypes. And I like writing, and Poppy enjoys it too.
Lovely. Did anyone else have any questions that they were hoping to ask our panelists tonight?
Hi, it's Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jen. Yes.
I wanted to ask both Kristy and I've just gone blank. There were two people that have gone overseas and done work overseas. Linda. Sorry, pardon me. I wanted to ask how you went with getting around. Was it mainly with silent guides, or did you have some other supports in place for orienting, working and doing projects overseas, given it was only a temporary period and then coming back? And how stressful or not was it? I'm sure it was enjoyable as well, but.
Sure. So when I went overseas, my eye condition had plateaued, so my eyesight was a bit better than it is today. So I found that just being more careful with my steps was enough. It was interesting with all the cobblestones that are scattered around Helsinki and the snow. But I did find at that stage I hadn't been using a cane, so I could get around quite easily. I did travel on the planes with one of my colleagues, so that made it easier when it came to reading signs and knowing where to go. So I guess that was probably a sighted guide type arrangement. Yeah.
I can add, so when I first travelled, prior to losing my sight, I had travelled quite a lot independently, and then our first trip to Vanuatu was in 2010, and I still had quite a good deal of functional vision at that stage. I was legally blind, but still was classified legally blind, but still had good functional vision. So because we returned to the same area most years, I actually have quite a good visual memory of where I am. So I sort of rely on a mind map, and we stay in the same place, in the same village, in the same guest house. And so I'm quite independent around the general small area. But as we travel and sort of walk to various villages and that sort of thing, obviously I need a sighted guide, and that's usually my husband. And it's quite rugged, the terrain, and so I've actually got a particular cane that I use there. I think they're called a bundu cane. So instead of having a ball on the end, it's got a bit of a hook, sort of a piece, and so it's much easier to use. It doesn't get as caught up as the standard canes do, so it's really quite good for terrain because we cross peaks and climb up mountains and do things like that. I've got to say that I have fallen down a few times and had injuries and that sort of thing, but that's part of the adventure. The other thing I would say is that for me, part of the attraction of trying to be as independent as I can is to role model what someone who is blind can do to people in that community, because Vanuatu, people with disabilities do not have access to a lot of support. And there are also some cultural associations. And so many people who are blind or vision impaired or have some other form of a disability, maybe a physical disability, tend to stay at home. They're not out and about. And so for me, part of part of my role there is not only to lead teams and, you know, do the things I love doing, but it's also about being out in the community and demonstrating that someone who is blind can be out and about, and also educating and talking to locals about what it means to be blind. And I have a funny little story, is that quite often, the first few years we were going there, I couldn't quite understand why some of the local fellows who would, you know, drive us in the trucks around the place would say to me, "Oh, your husband, he is such a good man." And I said, "Yeah, I know he's a good man." The context of that was that he's a really good man because he hasn't divorced me because of my vision impairment. And when I spoke to some of the ladies in the village, they said, no, these men are really serious. Perhaps in Vanuatu, if you were a Vanuatu lady married to a Vanuatu man, might not stay with you if you lost your vision. So again, that's another way that we're demonstrating that, you know, the independence and the ability to achieve and not holding me back.
That's incredible. Thanks, Linda. Liz, you've done a bit of travel overseas. I remember quite an extended trip to America. Do you have anything to add to the travel navigation orientation?
Yeah, so certainly for me, when I go overseas, by law for a lot of the countries I could take Poppy, but I find for the nature of the holidays we're doing and the frequent travel, it just wouldn't be suitable for her around meeting her needs and on and off buses and whatnot, and probably not a great mobility for me. So I actually use a cane when I travel. And my husband is a sighted guide. When I went to America, one of the things I also used when I was over there was ERA, which is basically a virtual orientation and mobility service. So I recall one night I had not been too well and my husband had gone out that evening. And so what I had done was needed a drink, and we were in an old hotel where there was no rails and no access. So I dialed into ERA and they walked down the hall with me. They found the lift, they found the buttons, helped me press them and navigated me all the way into the foyer. And then they noticed that they had complimentary water sitting. So they helped me get all the way over to a counter and to the complimentary water. I was able to pour myself a glass and then helped me all the way back to the lift. So I find little things like that help. I think as someone who's vision impaired, I'm not sure how others are. I'll get very tired when I travel because it is so many different environments and so much more to do. And I can sometimes get anxious in unfamiliar areas where there's a lot going on and there's a lot of movement. So I try and allow myself space for that. So the last holiday we did was a bus tour, and that was great because I got to rest on the bus and just have things taken in a little bit easier. So yeah, that was really good.
Lovely. Thanks, Liz. Kathy, any other questions or comments?
We've had a few comments come through the Zoom chat, but I'm just now really missing travel from hearing all from you three.
Me too.
But one day we will get to go again, I'm sure. There's been a lot of love for Poppy on the Zoom group chat, Liz. I think there's a few fans around, and a couple of people had to leave early. But thank you all for sharing your experiences and talking about your stories and your issues associated with inclusion. I was actually about to introduce you to Dr. Catherine Barrett, who also has a puppy with her. Now, Dr. Catherine Barrett is the founder of the Kindness Pandemic. And my understanding, and Catherine can certainly tell you the story a little bit better than me, but it was something that came to her back in March and something she started overnight, woke up the next day to realise that there was obviously a huge need for people to reach out and share stories of intersectional kindness. That has led us to today, where there is about 560,000 odd members, I believe, on the Kindness Pandemic, and we're very thankful to have a partnership with the Kindness Pandemic, and hence why we're doing this event, sharing our White Cane Day with you and sharing our stories of strong. But perhaps, Catherine, you'd like to tell us a little bit about your background and about where the idea came from to do both the Kindness Pandemic and the Festival of Strong.
Okay, well, just to say to everybody, this is Agnes, and Agnes would like to say hello to Poppy. Agnes is a 2.5-year-old miniature schnauzer, and we're based in Melbourne, so we've just been able to have a haircut. So Agnes is looking very sharp, lovely fluffy eyebrows and a big hairy beard. But what I wanted to say, actually, Kathy, is to thank Blind Citizens Australia for the partnership with Kindness Pandemic. It means such a lot to us, because the Kindness Pandemic is about, in some ways, is about getting through COVID-19. It's about getting through COVID-19, but it's also really about, I think, becoming better citizens. And I think before coronavirus, there were a lot of us who wanted a better world, who wanted a world that was kinder, where we understood each other and connected with each other better. And one of the things we've talked about, Kathy, is that you're teaching us. You know, I've learnt so much from you already. And so this not only gets us through COVID, but it helps us to be better citizens in the long run. So I just want to say I'm really grateful for the collaboration. And I think that what we're doing tonight by recording this event and then putting it up on the web page, and then, you know, let's push it out again through our group, is the opportunity to tell our group and to tell the world what it's like for people who are vision impaired or blind. You know, I think that's really incredibly important, and we are very grateful for this partnership. And, you know, there is an amazing team of 12 volunteers in Kindness Pandemic, and Kathy is one of them, and we are all committed to social justice. And that's why, you know, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to set up Kindness Pandemic. But increasingly what we realise is that it's kind of easy to be kind to people we know and love, and it's harder to reach out to people whose stories we don't understand. So that's why I think you sharing your stories with us tonight is incredibly important. And, you know, I think, did we have maybe 30 people or so in the group? But what we know from the Kindness Pandemic and the way that it works is that if we can do a video and we can share it, then people in their own time will watch it. And so I'm very grateful to you for sharing that and the opportunities to educate the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and everything you do. We have had another comment just come through from Scott. So he did ask the panel, as well as being strong in public life, how do you spend your time building resilience and relaxing? And I might shoot to you first, Kristy.
So a lot for me, because learning a brand new job where it's very in depth and there's a lot to learn. Very complex systems and policy that they have at Services Australia. I find myself leaning more towards just some downtime, some audiobooks, watching some movies, and spending time with my family that I can spend time with. It's about regenerating that strength in my downtime so that I can get out there and do what needs to be done. I really just enjoy helping the Australian public at this time. I'm lucky enough to have kept a job, and I understand there's so many people out there who just need a bit of kindness and a helping hand to get back on their feet.
Liz, how about you? How do you recreate and spend your downtime?
Singing badly in the kitchen. and the bathroom and anywhere else where I can just belt out a tune. And I think just that playfulness, so trying to bring some play, whether it's chasing poppies, singing or something like that. The other thing I found has been really helpful for me, actually 2 things that I would share, is purposeful journaling. So where I am really trying to regroup and challenge myself, I do thought challenging in a diary. So that's where I write out the evil thought that's been, or the automatic negative thought that's been bouncing around in my brain and seems so real and so convincing in that space and in that life. I put it onto the paper, or in my case, the notebook, because everything's electronic with me. And then I, I think about alternate realities, and I actually challenge, the evidence against it and what would be the cost if it came true. And 90% of the time the world isn't going to end. So that's helpful. And then the other big thing I find is really helpful is some form of quiet time for yourself. So for me, that can be meditation or yoga, or a walk in the park in the early morning or something like that. But those techniques, the combination of play, quiet, and actually really getting out of my head and challenging it, seem to really help me build my resilience and strength.
Wonderful. And Linda, do you get time to relax?
Look, I've had to be really intentional about putting boundaries around my time and enabling myself time to relax. I think that's really important. It is really important to have that downtime. So I also like audiobooks and Netflix and connecting with family through the pandemic. That hasn't been physically possible, but connecting in other ways with them is really important. I also love to cook, and I actually find cooking quite therapeutic and relaxing, especially if I have a glass of wine as I'm cooking. So yeah, just being able to do some baking or cooking for the week ahead is, I find that quite relaxing as well.
Lovely. Tim, you've got your hand up. Did you have a question?
That's more of a comment, Sal.
Go for it.
First, I'd just like to thank you all for tonight. And Liz, if you're not sure who I am, I'm Tim O'Halloran.
You're my friend Tim from
Yes,
Facebook.
that's right.
Hello.
Yeah, so I've been on here a couple of times when you've been on, but yeah, good to meet face to face.
Yeah.
Absolutely love you and Poppy, and when this is all over or whatever, I'd love to meet you both in person.
I'm sure we're going to be at some BCA event or something all together.
Yeah,
so
sometime.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Tim. Did anyone else have any questions or anything else I'd like to contribute to the discussion?
I had a couple of things to just pop in again, Sally. So Nicole had mentioned that she learnt so much from one of the participants on here. One thing which stands out for me is where I thought I was helping, for example, taking her arm and ushering her around without asking if she needs my help or asking if it is okay.
Excuse me, please.
Of course.
Hi, Silvana.
Hello. How old is a Poppy?
She's 7 in November.
7?
Yeah.
She's a guide dog, is she?
Yeah, she is. A very sleepy one right now.
Yeah. And then when was her graduation, please, Poppy?
So she would have graduated maybe 5.5 years ago now. So we've been working together for 5 years, but she was 16 months when she came to me. So she was quite keen to get into guide dogging.
Yeah, so she was not in 17. She was not from 17. No.
I can't actually recall. I'm not great. Can anyone do the math?
Yeah, it would be no.
No, yeah.
No, 3 years ago.
Yeah. She's not from a P litter, if that's what you're asking. And for anyone who's listening, most of their names from a litter and they go in order of the alphabet. Poppy's actually a bequest dog, so the family of the people who passed away selected her name for her.
Oh, yeah. So for that reason. Because
Yeah.
it was one puppy when my guide dog was graduating. And what was your name, please?
Liz.
Yeah, it's not the same person. Yeah, because it was another puppy when my guide dog had graduation. It was in 2017. But it was another puppy.
Yeah, it sounds like a
common name.
Well,
yeah, it was another puppy.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Thanks,
but it's
Silvana.
great.
Thank you.
Sorry about this.
No, please don't be sorry. It's great to have the questions. So I've pretty much wrapped up the group chat, but I did want to take the time to introduce Emma Bennison, our CEO, who is here on the chat as well. Obviously, most of us from BCA know Emma very, very well, but there are a few people here that Emma hasn't met, and in particular, I think Emma wanted to say a few words and thank Catherine.
Yes, thanks, Kathy. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you, Catherine, for being here tonight. Unlike you, I don't have a dog with me at the moment, but but it's really great that you've been able to take the time to be here. And I really want to thank you for all your support. The Kindness Pandemic campaign has been absolutely outstanding for us. It really has raised awareness, and it's enabled us to reach an audience that we would never otherwise have been able to reach. So I really appreciate that. And also wanted to say an enormous thank you to Linda, Liz and Kristy. You really did capture what strong actually means, I think, tonight. You actually reduced me, and I'm sure some other people to tears, because I think you really captured it extremely well. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to thank Sally, Kathy, Naomi, and all the other staff, Jen, Angela, Jane, who were here tonight to support this event, because without all of our staff, this kind of thing just wouldn't happen. So thank you all so much. And finally, I just want to acknowledge John Simpson, who is our president. He's also made the time to be here tonight. So I want to thank you, John, for supporting this event, because I think it's really important that, you know, we all show our support and really make sure that we raise community awareness. It's all very well for us to talk to ourselves, and that's an important process of peer support and connection, but it's equally important that we get the messages out into the community that people who are blind or vision impaired have an enormous and really critical contribution to make to what our society looks like. So hopefully this event has inspired us to think much more broadly about that contribution. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. I think to wrap things up tonight, Kathy, are we ready to move to Kristy's video?
Yes, if no one has anything else to add, yeah, I'd like to second Emma's thanks for everyone to coming along, and we shared with you previously Linda's video, and this one is Kristy's, which I'm just going to share my screen. So obviously this was when she was at DFAT. We might have to do another one, Kristy, now with the new role.
We might.
Right.
A stylised eye graphic forms text and eye to the future, a woman using a white cane shops.
My name is Kristy Fitzgerald. I'm 41 and I currently work for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in the City Passport Office. I live in a suburb that actually has an on-demand bus service. I hop on that every morning. It takes me to the local train station and I hop on a train for 45 minutes and it brings me to the city. It's just about a 400-metre walk from the station to my office. So I check all the documents that people provide with their passport applications. I check the photos and I check the signature and I check any assessments that our computer system flag that need further investigation. So I use Zoom Text that magnifies everything on the screen for me so I can see it better. I also use a video magnifier on my desk if I have paperwork on the desk that I need to enlarge as well. My eye condition is progressive, so I knew that one day I wouldn't be able to drive, and I needed to plan my future and find a career that I could be involved in without driving. In the 13 years I've been in the public service, I started out as an APS level 3. The future could possibly hold an APS level 6 role. I really enjoy showing that I'm a person with a disability in the workplace and just getting the job done like everyone else. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade actually have international skills and development programs, and I applied to go to the meeting that they were holding in Finland for the Global Action on Disability, the committee that they co-chaired at the time. I was successful, which was amazing. Then we travelled to Finland for 7 days. It was attended by world NGOs and governments, and it was an amazing experience. The highlight for me was just standing in a room chatting with all these people who wanted to make sure that people with disabilities were thought of in the aid programs that developed countries help in developing countries. Outside of work, I love watching movies, I love reading books, spending time with my family and friends. Love travelling, I love cruising. We have cruised from Hawaii, we've cruised to the South Pacific. We find it's just an awesome way to travel. It's relaxing and we can see other places at the same time.
She smiles in travel photos.
The statistics are there to show that people with disabilities are more reliable. We stay in jobs longer. There's job access, there's parts of the NDIS that will help fund work products, and there's just so many people out there that can help you settle someone with a disability. Just ask the question, what do you need? How can I help you? That's probably the first thing that anyone really needs to ask.
Text thanks to Kristy Fitzgerald and Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Learn more at itothefuture.com.au. This project is brought to you by BCA thanks to funding received from the NDIA via the 2019 Economic.
So that sort of brings us towards the end of our event tonight. Did anyone have any final questions or comments that they would like to make?
Yes, can I just, it's Alexander here. I'd like to say hello to that lady with Agnes. Hi, sweetie.
Oh, that's
hey,
hello. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for that. So it's been a fantastic night tonight, everyone. I would like to add my thanks to Linda, to Liz, and to Kristy for joining us tonight, to Emma and the team at BCA for all their support in making this happen, to Kathy, who's been working so diligently with the Kindness Pandemic, and to Catherine and the team at the Kindness Pandemic as well, and to each of you for joining us and making tonight such a success. If anyone who's here tonight would like to learn more about BCA, then feel free to check out our website at www.bca.org.au, or you can give us a call tomorrow and we'd be happy to chat to anyone more about what it is that we do and how you can get involved. If you'd like to learn more about our employment project, you can try the Eye to the Future website. So itothefuture.org.au, or again, give us a call. And also we've talked a little bit about our audio description campaign tonight as well. So you can find the details of that at tv4or.com.au is the website for that one. And again, call us if you would like some more information. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, everyone. We really appreciate you being here, celebrating International White